Hey everybody, it's Party Elite with an online battle today. I decided I needed a break from live streams so that I could get my head back in the game first. After a few losses against things like this, and this, I finally had some interesting battles to showcase. Like I've said before, I have no issues with showcasing losses. As long as the battle is interesting, I think it's worth watching. And if you prefer live streams, don't worry, they'll be back very soon. So let's start talking about the first battle. It pit me as Bretonnia against Crusader Scum as the dwarves. My composition was pretty standard. Leoncoeur in charge, 2 paladins, 3 men-at-arms with polearms, 3 peasant bowmen, 1 unit of mounted yeomen, 3 units of Knights of the Realm, and a unit of Pegasus Knights. And my 3 men-at-arms with polearms were all ranked up to rank 1, and my mounted yeomen were ranked up to rank 2. Meanwhile, the dwarves were fielding Thorgrim Grudgebearer in charge with 2 miners with blasting charges, a unit of Longbeards, 3 units of Longbeards with great weapons, a unit of Quarrelers with great weapons, a unit of Thunderers, a unit of Iron Drakes, 2 units of cannons, a unit of Gyrocopters with brimstone guns, and a unit of Gyro Bombers. Now, both of the miners with blasting charges are ranked up to rank 1, one of these Longbeards with great weapons is ranked up to rank 2, another one to rank 4, and the last one to rank 1, and the Quarrelers with great weapons are ranked up to rank 3. Then the Iron Drakes are ranked up to rank 1, the Cannon is ranked up to rank 1, and the Gyrocopters with brimstone guns are ranked up to rank 2. Of course, I didn't have any of this information going into the battle, but I wanted you to know the composition so that you can see how it all plays out. So my initial layout is pretty strange, as I tend to do, sort of. I've got my mounted yeomen and my Pegasus Knights out here in a vanguard position. I've got a unit of Knights of the Realm over here, 1 more back here, and a 3rd one here, in case the dwarf decides to play aggressively. Meanwhile, my lord is exposed out here alongside the 2 paladins, and otherwise my spearmen and my archers are creating sort of a defensive line here, just in case, again, the dwarf decides to be aggressive. And initially, with his gyrocopters with brimstone guns moving forward, I thought maybe he is likely to be, pushing forward as opposed to playing a defensive route. Nonetheless, I moved these Pegasus Knights and these mounted yeomen out of the way as soon as I can. Didn't want them to get caught in by these brimstone guns. However, just in the nick of time, or I guess not, I noticed that I was walking right into the firing arc of his cannons. So I turn around and I pull back before I even see the shots go off, but I do regret moving them in that direction as opposed to sort of pulling them back this way. Just a little micro problem there, but I get away from those brimstone guns without too much damage being done. And at that point, I sort of look at the enemy layout and see exactly what I'm dealing with. These cannons are going to be a bit of a problem for my infantry lines if I decide to march them all the way up to engage. So I wanted to make sure that I could take care of them first. Also, the Iron Drakes, the Thunderers, the Quarrelers, they were all pretty well equipped and positioned to damage my infantry if they pushed forward, and I did not want my infantry to just break in terms of morale. That was my biggest concern during this battle for this really long and very clear run-up to those front lines. So I started devising a way that I could take care of those units first and then send my infantry in. So as I'm sort of thinking, just trying to be patient, trying to egg him on into moving forward, I'm also thinking about how I can approach this army. So you'll notice I started sending these yeomen, sending them out to the side, maybe hoping to push them forward and just see how Crusader Scum reacts. Now he does start to push forward, which gets me a little excited, but it's all a pretty short motion, and then I decide to sort of check his tolerance for firing with his artillery. I wanted to know how responsive he was, if he was on fire at will, if he was targeting specifically. So I send these mounted yeomen in, and he responds with his brimstone guns while his cannons fire at my lines. So that's when I realize that he's actually in control of his artillery, and he's also maybe prone to mistargeting. So that's when I start to devise my plot, let's call it. I push forward with all my cavalry for the most part, leave these Knights of the Realm behind, but I push forward with everyone at the same time. So with just his 2 units of cannons and brimstone guns, 2 units of cannons and 1 unit of brimstone guns, he has to make some decisions, and he decides to go after these Pegasus Knights on their charge forward, which, a decent call. I would have maybe targeted Leoncoeur instead, especially while you've still got the time. But you'll see, because of his lack of reaction with the brimstone guns, and his lack of spread fire with his 2 cannons, they could have been targeting separate units, I am able to get this initial cavalry surround going here. So I dive in right away. These Pegasus Knights, get them in to fight these miners with blasting charges, because I don't want their blasting charges to go off against any of my regular cavalry units, and I also want to obstruct fire from these thunderers and the cannons. Meanwhile, I've got the paladins and Leoncoeur going in, dropping in a debuff there, the Sword of Couron, which reduces armor and defense, and I've got my cavalry going in. I really want to take care of the cannons first. I was very worried that he would turn around and just envelop my army right here, but he's almost acting as if he was AFK. I'd believe he was AFK if I didn't see these miners turn around to throw their blasting charges in. I think what happened here, there was a bit of a misjudgment in terms of how well his soldiers would be able to handle the units I sent in. You'll notice I actually left these Knights of the Realm in reserve just to see how he'd respond. Maybe that's what stopped him from just surrounding my my lords and my paladins, because had he done that, that's why I left these Knights of the Realm behind. I would have just sent in for a rear charge and maybe caused some damage to morale. Nonetheless, a pretty good engagement in my books. The cannons were both disrupted, their morale has been dropped, and I do want to obviously get them off the field, because as I said, I've got a long way to go from there to here. Now, this is when I send my Knights of the Realm in. I do want to start taking care of these Thunderers, these Iron Drakes, and these Quarrelers as well, because they will cause me trouble. So, charge in from the side, get a decent amount of damage in, and again, just peppering him, just sort of harassing him with these initial cavalry charges. I do want to try and keep as many of my soldiers alive as much as possible, which is why I'm really unhappy about those Pegasus Knights being caught out, because that's a lot of really valuable knights being taken out. So that is important to me. I try to play it as if I actually care about the lives of these people, so I don't want to send my peasants just marching down the field, as I said earlier, to just face off against cannons, bombers, and fire and the like. Now again, just focusing down on these separate units. These blasting charges are a bit of a concern, so I get rid of them, and just keep sort of peppering in and out, pushing in and out, and then also microing these Knights of the Realm, just send them in from behind and into these Iron Drakes. So again, just overall going back and forth, trying to harass as much as possible, trying to force these units to break with these, surrounds, making their flanks insecure, and just overall playing mind games with Crusader scum as well. Obviously, I don't know if I was successful, but I hope to think that he was a little confused at what I was doing, a little taken aback at my approach, and maybe he was concerned about where my other units were, if I had something else hidden somewhere, which is why maybe I looked like I was sacrificing all these units so readily. But of course, I did have Leoncoeur's ability to regenerate health, and also these paladins do have their potions to keep them alive for longer, so I was pretty well equipped for this kind of isolated attacking. And I like to do this when and where possible, where it makes sense, because it allows me to dismantle the enemy army before having to send my army forward. It gives me a better fighting chance, especially in terms of morale in this case, where I'm able to take out a lot of these ranged units and do damage to a lot of these melee units, so that the final engagement with my less powerful units doesn't have to last as long. So, just more back and forth here. Just going to skip forward a little bit. And this is when I finally send my the rest of my army forward. This is when the reserves kick in. Again, these guys just sort of forming up here, trying to instigate a reaction. I don't see one, so I charge into these long beards from the side. They've got the Sword of Couron on them as well, so that will, reduce their defensiveness. And again, this slow kind of march forward happens. I don't really lay them out in formation at first. I just give them a move order because I wasn't focusing, and I intended to sort of clean up their layout after the fact, because as far as I was concerned, this was pretty much in the bag at this point. So you'll see, again, this is a very slow march forward, and that's why I wanted to take care of those cannons and the Thunderers and the Quarrelers from the start, because all this while, had he been firing with his cannons at these units, it would have been quite tragic. They would have probably all broken if I'd come too close, and he would have been able to charge in with his infantry units, and I don't think I would have stood much of a chance against a full infantry onslaught. Now, he gets to form up, obviously, because I do pull back all of these units, so he gets to form up. However, he leaves his Thunderers out here, or pulls them out, maybe chasing one of these units down, so I am able to open fire with my missile units, my Peasant Bowmen, when they came forward. And also, the Mounted Yeomen, they had one final valiant charge into the backs of these Iron Drakes here, and did a little bit more damage. So once again, just slowly creeping forward, trying to bait him into action, hoping he'll take an aggressive route so that I can then, have him trapped here and then push in. But it's obviously, too obvious a move here. But I'm almost just trying to see how close I can creep in and how much damage I can do with my ranged units. Because again, just at the edge, just at the perimeter, and I know the Quarrelers are a bit of a problem because they do have good range. And I want to make sure, again, that I don't have too much morale damage before these engagements start, because again, one hit from these Iron Drakes, one drop of these bombs from the Gyro Bombers, and my lines could collapse. So just trying to be very careful in that regard. And again, so I notice, of course, these gyrocopters, they are coming forward. So I open fire with these Peasant Bowmen, but I completely slips my mind that they have bombs as well. So you'll see right away that morale drop is insane. And that's what I was worried about. So I am glad that I played so slowly and didn't rush into combat with everyone altogether, because I feel like these units would have routed without a doubt. Now I noticed that, and I noticed these bombers have come back here, so I do send Leoncoeur over here just to encourage these troops, prevent them from breaking, and then I send these paladins in to take care of these gyrocopters. So, I drop that buff down, make sure everyone's operating at full mental fitness, and then I open fire again at these Thunderers that have decided to creep forward. I'm really not sure what Crusader Scum was thinking there. Meanwhile, again, because he's left his gyrocopter stationary back here, I've got my paladins coming in, I've got Leoncoeur coming in. Don't want any one of them to get too badly hurt, so, I just get a full surround in and quickly take care of these guys, taking minimal damage in return. And at the same time, again, using these Peasant Bowmen as well to open fire, just to quickly take care of this distraction. And you'll notice I'm not rushing my cavalry in or anything, I'm taking my time. There's no reason for me to be forcing in, and meanwhile he's playing it a bit too defensively. These gyro bombers could have been dropping bombs up and down these lines for the last, quite a while, and that would force me into action. I have very little against that when these three units are all busy with these gyrocopters, so really some poor management there, I'd say. And I finally decide that enough is enough, so I push forward with this line of infantry units, and the first thing I want to do is take care of these Thunderers and these Quarrelers, because again, I just don't want them to open fire on my units as they march forward. I like to, again, play as if every life matters. I like to play as if I'm an actual commander, so I try to be careful about when I put lives at risk. So again, this missile fire is just going to hurt their morale. I'm hoping to do some damage as well, of course, but really it's about that morale damage. Try to get them to run away, even temporarily, gives me that extra opportunity. So Strickland with that fire there. He does send his gyro bomber in, but I notice that my units have clumped up, so pretty quickly I give an order for them to separate, and I do send in Leoncoeur along with the two paladins just to intercept. And I focus fire with the missile units as well. I do not want them to get the bombs off, because that could devastate my lines, completely kill, half my troops possibly, and ruin their morale. So that's a risk I'm not willing to take. So I, open fire, intercept, and with one hit, Leoncoeur takes down that gyro bomber and brings an end to its life. Waste of money, didn't do a lot of work at all. I don't think it did any work, actually. So really, just I understand, the dwarves tend to be sort of a turtling kind of army. They work well as a defensive force, but don't play too defensively. You'll get yourself caught out and picked apart. You'll see I've got the Thunderers routing now, and I really don't have to worry about these miners with blasting charges. This unit of Longbeards with great weapons that has been ranked up so high is so far damaged, and the same thing with these Longbeards with great weapons. Everyone's so far hurt that I'm not really concerned about an engagement. It's just these Iron Drakes, unfortunately, that made it this far, and I didn't realize that I was in range, and that's why he moved forward and still decided to turtle. I was expecting a full engagement. So he does get a decent hit in, and again, look at the amount of damage it does. That's what I was worried about here, and that's why I'm glad that I played so sort of slowly and, picked off the more dangerous units. Imagine the support the cannons would have given. It would have completely wrecked my army. So here you have it. I decide that, Leoncoeur, king that he is, goes in first, gets a beautiful charge in, leading by example, and, all the men-at-arms are motivated, ready to fight. They want to kill some dwarfs, and so I send them in for a quick melee, bring the knights in as well, missile units still firing in, and this dwarven defensive box here is no match for an attack from all these directions. armor-piercing units, cavalry that's too fast for them to handle. And look, this unit of Longbeards, I didn't even have to hurt for them to break. So very quickly, this went to a victory where it could have been pretty bad had I not played so slowly. Again, I was really concerned about those cannons opening fire into my troops as they marched forward. I was worried about the gyro bomber and the gyrocopter with brimstone guns. It was a pretty well-balanced dwarven army, I have to say, if it was used more aggressively. Unfortunately, I find that a lot of dwarf players like to play defensively because of those charge bonuses they get and because of that lack of speed. Fully understandable decision, but as you can see, as a result of that, I was able to do a lot of work with my Knights of the Realm, with my Mounted Yeomen even, which I was actually thinking would just be a distraction, of course, and Leoncoeur had a field day along with his Paladins, so playing too defensively can be bad. I understand the dwarfs are sometimes forced into that position, but when you've got units like the Gyro Bomber and the Gyrocopters, you really want to push forward that mobility. You need to use it and force your opponent into action, because almost certainly, if the Gyro Bomber was coming into my lines and opening fire and dropping bombs onto my peasants, I would probably be forced into action. Even after I took care of the cannons, that would force me into action. So I hope you guys enjoyed this battle. It was a decisive victory, which obviously I'm happy to see after those losses that I mentioned at the start of this video. And I do feel like I'm getting back into the groove, so might turn back to live streaming very soon. And apart from that, for more Total War content, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.